Hello and welcome to AccelByte's virtual GDC demos. So today I'm going to be covering our GDPR and our legal document tracking services in a bit more detail. I'm Shane. I'll be your host. But yeah, I guess I'm also going to start off by covering just a little bit more about who or what AccelByte is, and if you're not familiar with us, just also kind of quickly cover some of the other services that we offer as well. So by the end of this, you should hopefully have a full kind of idea of who and what we are and what we do. And then perhaps you could consider joining us for some of our other demos in the future. We have one coming up after this one, probably at about 3 hours after this, for basically making sure what you need to have for your game to be a cross-platform game. And then for the rest of the week, we will be doing talks at the same time as these ones every day. If you go to AccelByte.io and check out our blog, you can find all of our schedules for exactly what times that stuff is occurring at. And who knows, some of it might be useful for you. So yeah, please do check it out. So yeah, I guess who or what is AccelByte is a very good question to start off any conversation. So AccelByte is a game backend platform, and it's built by people who built by experts, in fact, formerly from companies like Epic, EA, Microsoft, Ubisoft, GameSparks, and a few more as well. So we kind of have a lot of collective expertise and engineering gone into this platform. So we feel like we know what we're doing. We have a really good idea of how best we should be providing these services to games and developers and publishers who need online support for their games. We're a one-stop shop for microservices, so effectively, if your game has any online requirements, we have built or can build a solution for you that will work. So we cover everything from user account management, e-commerce, social, matchmaking, player profile, which includes individual player statistics and cloud saves. We do telemetry, we do analytics. We also have stuff for server orchestration and crash reporter, lots of things like that as well. But most importantly, we have all of these features that are out of the box, but we don't really believe that any one size fits all for these solutions. So what that means is we have an IAM service for user account management and logging in. We have e-commerce and social, as I've already mentioned. And we provide a version of this that works straight out of the box. You can log players in, you can sell them items, you can have them matchmake against basic rules, and all these kind of, stuff to get you going really, really quickly and have your game up and running as quick as possible so that you can actually work on what matters about your game, being the game design and the feature design. So the fact that no one size fits all comes into it, where if every game were to use our out-of-the-box features, we'd have a lot of games that just feel the same. They wouldn't feel unique. People might get bored of the way things behave. So when it comes to leaderboards and statistics and cloud and how players match together, that stuff is really important to customize for your specific game's needs. So with that, I'll explain a bit more about how we provide our service as well. So you come to AccelByte, you talk to us, and we kind of work out what the best way it is for you to approach using our technology, and it's very much a collaborative effort. So you initiate the conversation with AccelByte, and we will discuss your particular needs. We will be able to spin up an instance of our game platform. And it's important to note that all of our instances, when we are spinning them up for you, they are single tenant. And that means that unlike other kind of backend as a service providers, all of your data is on a single instance, a single server that is yours. A multi-tenant server solution is something like you have your game deployed on our server infrastructure, and then another game gets really popular or has a double XP weekend and brings in a ton of traffic. And for whatever reason, that traffic kind of starts to overload the servers, or the server starts slowing down. And if you're on a multi-tenant cluster of servers, that can actually impede the performance of your game. Or vice versa, if your game suddenly becomes popular, you're now degrading the performance of other games that you have no control over. You've probably never talked to the devs, let alone know who they are. So single tenant is really important in that regard, where you're not only kind of keeping your data away from anyone else. It's not being shared on a larger ecosystem. All your data is in one place, but more importantly, you have full control over how your services interact with each other. There's no outside interference. It's all self-contained in that regards. So that kind of covers how we would deploy things. It's important to note as well that most of our APIs work through REST. So if we look at our solutions tab here, we have a lot of solutions for user account management, commerce, profile, stats, lobby, and everything. Most of these are REST APIs, the exception being lobby and matchmaking and social. These are using a WebSocket layer so that the game client can receive asynchronous messages to and from the server effectively. So, stuff like friend requests or chat messages or invites to games, we kind of need those to be we need the game client to be responsive to those rather than constantly polling the server and requesting information of, hey, did I receive any messages yet? So instead of that, it's like pop up, you get a toast and it says, Kevin has sent you a friend request, and you can start chatting to Kevin, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the rough overview of how the service works, and I'll jump into this a bit more now when I click on our player portal, and I can show you a game in action as well. So yeah. Let's jump into the player portal. So if we go to our particular demo environment here that we've set up, which is demo.accelbyte.io. Another thing you'll probably hear me mention quite a bit is everything is customizable. So with that in mind, the demo that you're seeing today is a demo that we have deployed ourselves that kind of covers the broad feature set of what we actually do. By no means, if you were to use our service, would you have to use this specific implementation of our player portal. Generally, what happens is if you're a developer, whether you have 1 or 2 people in your company, whether you have 10, whether you have 50 or 200, becoming a big developer in that case, or even a publisher, chances are you already have a website, you already have a flow and a design that you really like, and we're not going to make you sacrifice that. So we've actually worked with customers before where we've implemented our player portal into their existing website, and the only thing that actually changes is we have a little login button up the top. In some cases we add a store, in some cases we add support, but generally the design of the website doesn't have to change all that much. And we even integrate with existing CMS. A lot of game websites are powered by WordPress or some other CMS solution, so that's not an issue for us. We can really work with you to make whatever solution you're currently using work with our stuff as well. So I will get us started on our user journey. I will go to the user journey a bit quicker than I have done in the past couple of videos. You can check out our YouTube channel or, again, our blog website to see our previous streams, where we're going a bit more in detail about how the users register, how you manage your users. This specific talk will be mostly covering just the GDPR and the legal management service, but I'll likely touch on a few other things and explain those along the way as well. So logging in for users, generally your users will be quite trusting that you have their best interest in mind. You're not going to sell their data, all those other things. And again, that's where the single tenant, you own your data, comes into play. There are other third-party services where your data is not necessarily guaranteed to be yours. They can mine it for information, etc. But generally, you want to have that trust with your user, and that's something you can tell them that you have, that they can have with you. So logging in with my default user profile here, you'll see the website doesn't change too much. We did get a weird error there, but it's a live demo, so no big deal. We can just refresh the page and everything should work again. But you will see up here that there's my username, my actual virtual currency, and my player profile. I can click through my account here. And again, I've kind of covered this in a bit more detail, but I'll go through it quite quickly here. User profile is where your users manage their profile, for lack of a better term. But what you can see here is generally, as a user, I want to be able to see what games I own. You can see that in this box here. We can click see all, and if I had more games, you'd see a bigger list here. I can see which accounts I've linked to my user. So in this case, I've linked my personal Steam account. And we do support things like Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, Google, Apple, and a few other social networks and stuff like that. It is super easy for us to add something. So let's say, I'm not sure, we probably do have support for QQ chat, but if we don't, and you wanted QQ chat, we would work with you, get the requirements, and implement that particular login flow, and your users would then be able to do that pretty quickly. So that's it for linked accounts. It's fairly straightforward. I did cover in a video yesterday the difference between logging in, or registering rather, with an email address and registering with a linked account. If you register with an email address, it creates a full user account. We have some information about the player, such as their email address, their date of birth, other information like that. So that kind of makes that user a bit more valuable because you can market directly to that user. You can kind of build a better relationship with that particular user. If, however, instead of registering with an email address, I, as a user, just buy your game through Steam, and I want the user flow to be as seamless as possible, what's going to happen is the game launches, and the game uses the AccelByte SDK. It registers and connects to the AccelByte backend, which will be your backend. And then we also use the Steamworks SDK. So Steamworks SDK will get a token. The AccelByte SDK will do the login with third-party API call, pass that token to Steam, consume it, and then get the information back and successfully authenticate the user. What happens with that particular user flow is we don't have an email address. We don't have any personal information about the user except for their Steam username and their Steam ID, perhaps. So that user is what is called a headless account. So a headless account still has all the functionality and permissions that a full account does. It just has less information. So ideally, you would want to try and get some more information on that user if possible. But if not, it's not the end of the world. And it is, of course, possible to have a headless account link an email address to their account, or vice versa. I could have an email account, and as you can see on the screen here, I can have a Steam account or an Xbox account linked to this already existing account. Other things players can do is manage their sessions. So if I click on session management here, you can see that this is the particular session I am on. I'm in Dublin in Ireland, and I logged in less than an hour ago. This is handy for users to be able to kind of secure their own account for whatever reason that may be. They might log in and see that for somehow their password was leaked, or they gave their password to a friend and the friend was logging on or did some shady business with someone, and they could see all the instances of their account management here. So they could actually just log these accounts out if they saw something fishy. So it's fairly straightforward and fairly useful for the player too. So with that, I'm going to skip over the order history and payment stuff for now, and we can come back to it later if we have time. But I'm going to jump down into our privacy records, personal data, and account deletion. So what you didn't see when I logged in here is that I signed a terms of agreement effectively with the platform when I registered or when I logged in and they were changed. So these are the standard kind of things that you've agreed to on every other service you've ever used, such as Steam or Spotify or any one of those. Every once in a while, you get a little email saying, hey, we've changed our legal terms of agreement. In order to keep using our stuff, you need to accept them, etc. So in that case, this lets the user keep track of the privacy records they've signed. And as a greater service, this is actually part of our legal document management service. Bit of a mouthful. But what this effectively allows you to do is, as a developer or a publisher, you might want to just kind of cover your behinds on certain topics or subjects. If users are doing something shady with the account, you want to prevent accounts from being sold, etc. I thought you'd have a terms of service, and that would be against the rules. So the legal management service allows you as a developer to write out your legal agreements, create those in the backend, which I'll show shortly. And then you can upload different languages of the legal agreements. And then you can also, you can then publish or schedule a version to go live. And once a published version is live, that's the one that we see here as a player. But the cool thing is you can upload a new version of that, like 1.01, and then you can schedule that to go live. And then when the player next logs in after that's live, they have to agree to that one and to continue on. But the valuable thing here for you as a developer is that you can actually keep individual track at the user level of what the last terms of service that they agree to for your game was. So you might notice there's a player account who is being sold on eBay, but for whatever reason, the terms of service that they had signed originally doesn't prevent them from selling the account. But there's always stuff like that. But certain users would then have signed that particular terms of service, so you could take action against that account, and there might not be any fallback. So it's quite useful in just keeping track of all of that stuff as well. We'll jump into that a bit more in probably about 5-10 minutes when we check it out on the admin portal and configure a new terms of service. But for now, we'll jump into GDPR from a client's perspective. So GDPR, very important. Basically, we need to, as a developer, only keep the data that we're actually using on a user. But then also, if a user makes a GDPR request from us, we have to abide by that. So what players can do here in our personal data request screen is they can type in their password, and then our GDPR service will actually dig through our databases on all of our other services, such as IAM for user management, the messaging service, our notification service, our matchmaking, our e-commerce service for this particular player's ID. And what it will do is it will collate all that data into a big JSON file or multiple JSON files, zip it all up, and then provide that file here for a user to peruse at their own liking. So that kind of covers us for being able to return that data to the user without having a person involved. That can be a tiny bit more complicated though, as you may have a third-party system that doesn't have an easy way to trigger a GDPR request process, but I'll cover how that's handled in our backend in just a moment as well. Finally, on GDPR, we need to also provide users with a way to delete their account, and not just delete their account, but also request that all information we're keeping about them be removed as well. So what happens in this case is, much like our personal data request, a user puts in an account deletion request, and again, the GDPR service activates. It scans through all the documents we have about this particular player in our databases, and then instead of deleting those documents, what it actually does is it takes the personally identifiable information on each document and it scrubs that out so that we no longer have any PII to identify the individual user. So that would be stuff like their email address, their date of birth, if we're storing session logs, their location data, just stuff like that as well, so that we can ensure both GDPR Europe and our players that we are in fact complying to the directive. So once all that data is deleted, we then actually delete the account. And again, nothing's deleted. So if we were just removing players from the database, what would happen is, your sales report might be missing a few numbers because we've actually completely removed that data. But in this case, no, everything stays intact. It's just we can no longer identify the individual who made that purchase. So it's pretty straightforward. And yeah, the next thing from GDPR is not GDPR, in fact, but the California Consumer Protection Act. And we don't have full support for that out of the box right now. It is something we are actively working on, and it will be available in the very near future. But I will go into our admin dashboard and I'll show you how to modify these two services to how your game may need them. So first I'm going to log out, and I'm not going to save those credentials. And then I'm going to go log in again, and we log in with our demo credentials, and then go to our admin portal. So /admin, and this is the admin portal. So this is the portal that's driving absolutely everything that you see on the player portal on our launcher, which I haven't shown in this particular demo, but I do have 2 previous demos and demos coming up that will dig more into the launcher. And this also drives the data that the game client is actually using as well. So again, for instance, the legal management service, which is this one down here, your user may not want the player portal, you may not want the launcher, you may just want the backend. And we do support that particular flow of how you want to use our services. We kind of take everything on as a choose your own adventure in a way. If you want 1 or 2 features, so be it. We're happy to help with whatever you want to implement. If you want the whole platform, perfect. If you want the whole platform as well as the portal and the launcher, even better. So you can pick and choose exactly which services you want. But in this case, we'll just focus on the legal one for now. And I'll show how we can change some of this stuff live. So you can see all of these terms of services are available for a user. If I open up a new incognito window and go to our demo environment, so here, if I try and register a new user, you'll see this list of terms of services. So I click login, I click create new account, and you can see we've pulled in all the legal agreements I need to accept before registering a new account effectively. And you can see that some of these are optional as well, so we do support that. But I'll quickly jump into our terms of service, which is the one you see here once I've clicked on it. And you can see fairly straightforward. We have a document name. We have a target namespace, which I covered in the previous video. But effectively, a namespace is a game configuration. So if you think of something like a GameSparks or a PlayFab, when you create a game configuration, you are creating just a container for that individual game config. With AccelByte, because we are single tenant, when we host your entire backend, you have the ability to have a top level namespace or game configuration, and then you can create sub level or game level configurations underneath that kind of take certain configurations with them, but then are kind of self isolated on your backend as well. So you can have a user in your publisher level namespace or your top level game configuration. You can have a user in game A, and then you could also have a user in game B, but a user in game A may never play game B, so we wouldn't create a user account for that particular game, but they would still exist in the ecosystem as a whole. So that's namespace in a nutshell. I did cover it in slightly more detail in the video at the end of yesterday, and I'll likely cover it again during the week. But I can take questions after I'm finished here, and we can discuss that in more detail if that requires some clarification. We're also targeting a particular country for this terms of service. Not all countries, in fact, no country I believe has the exact same legal system as another. So it's important that we cover our butts on specific countries that might have drastically different legal terms that people are required to agree to. We can target individual clients that this terms of service is covering. So you might have a very simple single player game that is using stuff like telemetry or leaderboards for some features. So they might not require a full-blown 46-page terms of agreement that something like a massively multiplayer online game would. So we could say, okay, only show this legal service if the player logs in to an MMO, and don't show it if they log into something smaller. We can give it a short description in the language that we're displaying it in, and we can also say whether or not that this update is, or this terms of service is mandatory, which is, see here, having no optional tag beside it. So each individual version is maintained separately. I can jump into the currently active version, which is 1.0, I believe. And I can see that here that 1.0, I have a version ID, its current status, when it was last updated, all that useful information. I can also see the values for the individual languages that are available. So English and US English are available at the moment, and we can go and add a new one in a second. But it's very easy to maintain. If you want to add a new one, you can upload an .md text file for Markdown. And you can see here all the text comes in as Markdown text, and then you can kind of modify that as you go and make sure you're happy with how it looks. And then once you're happy with how it looks, you can schedule that particular version to go live. So here, I'm going to create a new version, and we're going to call this just 1.02. And is it an important update? We'll say yeah. So 1.02, and now we can go into version 1.02, and we have no localized versions uploaded. So we can click create a new version here, and we can select any individual language that we want this particular document to be in. So I'm going to say English US, and I'll see if I have an MD file available. I don't seem to. 1 second, I will create one off screen, and then we will just upload a basic text document real quick. So we've saved our text document, and we're going to browse for it, and I believe I called it a binding legal document. So where did it get saved to now? Another story. There it is at the bottom. So binding legal, we're going to create this document here, and we've successfully uploaded it, and we can see that this is a binding legal document. So we can edit this now, and we can say, okay, well, we're going to give this a H2, and oops, I forgot a load of other stuff. So we're going to say, please do not break this. And that's our binding legal document. However, I could now create multiple language versions of this and have it translated into Italian, Indonesian, Japanese, and so on. And all we have to do now is we just save our legal document. It takes a second, and then we can go back and we can now schedule this particular version to go live. But I'm just going to actually publish this, and I'm going to go through our security process here, and I won't notify everyone in our database that we have a new policy update. But what's going to happen now is if I go here and I go back to log in, now that we have a new legal document available, Shane at AccelByte.net, log in. Oh, we have an invalid request. I will try. Oh, I know what this is. This is a known bug we have at the moment on our demo portal, but trust us, it's been fixed elsewhere. But if I log out of our admin portal real quick, and I'll make this full screen, and we will log in with Shane again. So Shane at AccelByte.net. So once we log in here, this is going to our admin portal. If I go back to our player portal and repeat the login, apologies again, it's a live demo. It shouldn't be happening, but not everything's perfect first time around. But once we log in, we will see that we have a new legal service that's available. I can see it's the terms of services. I can click read more, and that this is a binding legal document, and I've been asked extremely nicely not to break this binding legal document. I can, of course, click in this and see it as different versions of languages if I had uploaded those. But for now, it'll do. I'm okay with those legal documents. I'll accept it, and if I accept it, I'm allowed into the platform. If I decline it, I'll have to go through a process of logging back in again and accepting it there. But that's it for the legal document stuff. It's fairly straightforward. It's just an incredibly useful tool that other third parties tend to overlook or leave out that ability for you to be able to provide those, or they leave it up to you to build your own completely and have that as part of your games and managing that tool that way. So I will quickly jump back into our admin portal and I'll show off just how you configure some of the GDPR stuff, and then we'll go into questions, and I can cover some more of our admin portal account also has to accept the terms of services. Okay, at least we have our bases covered. But if I jump into admin, make sure I spell it correctly, and log in again. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the old legal document back to live so I don't get into any trouble with anyone else in my team. Sorry guys if this caused an issue. So I'll click publish on our old version, and as a user I will have to, if I've accepted a different version of the terms of services when I log in with my default or at my admin, I'll have to accept a new one as well. So that's the legal management. Very powerful, very useful, just helps save from headaches in the future. So real quick, I'm going to jump into our user account management, and we can see how our user accounts look to an admin of the portal. So I'm going to use this one that I used to demo a moment ago. So this is what a user looks like in our backend, and this isn't the sum of all the data that we're using that we're tracking on the particular player. As I mentioned at the start of the video, we have what we call a player profile separate to our user profile, and what you're seeing here is the user profile. The player profile is kind of a subset of this profile with a small JSON data store where you can kind of store arbitrary information. So, you might want to keep track of whether a user has clicked on certain items in a menu, whether they've entered certain towns in your village in the game, stuff like that. It can be used for anything. It's totally up to you. But they have an individual player profile for different games, and it's quite useful. We also have cloud save information, which we don't show in this particular panel for player information. But as I mentioned at the very start of the call and a couple of times since, if that information was necessary for it to be displayed here for customer service requirements or something like that, we can work with you and collect requirements, and we can extend our user dashboard to have any of that extra information. And one cool thing you could do is if you did have an isometric kind of dungeon crawling game where you're collecting lots of loot, is you could have a panel here that has an image of that player's character with how it's configured and what items are in the shoulder slots and the arm slots and the belt slots and fun stuff like that. But we're here on a different mission. We're here to check out the GDPR stuff. So all I'm showing on this particular page is you can, as a customer service representative or admin or game developer for that fact, You can make personal data requests on behalf of individual users. So, someone might have gotten locked out of their account, or they for whatever reason, they're unable to log in for whatever reason, but they may have sent you an email and they want to trigger the GDPR process. So we just want to make sure all of our bases are covered and that a particular user is in fact able to get that data or request that their account be deleted. So as a developer, as a customer service representative, they can do that here. And then for our actual GDPR configuration, we have two other important panels here. We have our age restriction. So certain regions in the world require that people be of different age to access or have their information tracked. So you might notice that Facebook and some other services require that all users be older than 13 years old. They would have some service set up like this to manage that for the individual countries. And they may not have an actual service to manage it, but as a game developer or small publisher or big publisher, having a tool to do it and manage it for all the countries is rather useful. So first off, we can set an age restriction, yes or no. If it's a kids game, we can let everyone in. But we want to, again, cover ourselves on this. So we want to have an age restriction. We sell quite gory or shooters on our website. So we want to make sure that everyone is over 17 years old. And we can update that. And anyone now has to pass an age gate effectively to create an account or log in or see our stuff. So that's kind of there to cover us again legally to make sure that we have put the onus on the person creating this account to tell us that they are of age. But what you can now do is you can say, okay, well, in Ireland, for instance, they're a bit less strict on the age ratings for their games. So we can change the age rating on this game for this particular country to 16, and that's done. So Ireland now you can be of lower age to view that particular game. And it's a very small tool, but it's something that lets you just have fine-grained control over the security and the availability of the services that you provide to people. So yeah, that's the age restriction. And then the last part of our GDPR configuration, before I jump into taking questions on our Discord or in the live chat on YouTube, is we have this admin notification panel for whenever a GDPR request is made. So what happens is a user makes a GDPR request, whether it be a hey, collate all my data or hey, delete my account. And anyone listed on this this list here will receive an email about it. It will also say, hey, for whatever reason, we failed to do this data request. You need to check in on this as well. So it's kind of just, again, it's all about covering you under the best of circumstances to make sure that you are complying to GDPR at all times. But another handy feature of this is, let's say you're using AccelByte for the I am feature, the matchmaking feature, and the friends feature. But for some reason, you may have had an existing contract in place with another third-party provider to provide e-commerce, for example. So not every service provider is created equal. So AccelByte has a nice GDPR process in place here. And everything in our dashboard that you see to configure the platform is a REST API that's available for you to trigger. So you can automate the process of someone's triggered a GDPR request and the process is automated. We find that user ID and process it for them. But not all third parties do provide that functionality. So in the case where you might have a third-party provider who's doing e-commerce, if they don't have the ability to trigger an automated GDPR request, someone on this email address will know that, okay, we need to go through the process. We know AccelByte's handling GDPR, but we need to log into these third-party services and kick off the process there as well and return that information and make sure that we aren't missing any particular information we as an entity are holding against this particular player. So it's just, again, it's there to kind of cover people's behinds and make sure that everything is all above board when it comes to GDPR. And as I mentioned, we're also looking into the CCPA to make sure that we're going to be fully compliant with that very quickly as well. The final two panels are just purely for data kind of visibility. So we have calendars here that will go through and actually show the days that we've actually done a GDPR request. So probably one or two in here, but not in recent memory, as we don't want to trigger a big email to all those people that we've seen. So here we can see that Vincent, my colleague, has made a GDPR request on this particular user ID. It was completed, the date it was on, and if this is still in process, we can actually cancel this request if a user is like, oh no, I didn't mean to click that, I didn't know what it would do. So again, we're just trying to enable all of the functionality of GDPR for you, make it as easy as possible, make sure you don't have to have all of the people on your team kind of be completely aware of GDPR, because we're here to handle it. And as I mentioned at the start of the call, we would initiate our kind of conversation with you as a collaboration. So we are fully there to gather requirements from you, work with you to make sure that you're hitting all the boxes for GDPR, for how services are supposed to be deployed and managed and all of that stuff. So we're here to help you. Your success is our success, and we want to make it the best relationship as possible as it can be in that regard. So yeah, that is it for our GDPR and our legal management. So on that note, we do have a live chat in our stream. You can ask any questions there. Please keep it civil. But I can click through. It doesn't have to be GDPR or legal management related. And I can click through and show you some of our features. We also have a Discord available. So in the description below this video, if you're on YouTube, it has links to that. Otherwise, you can go to our social media and click on links from there, or just to our website and our blog. And join our Discord. You can ask us questions. So yeah, again, thank you so much for watching our live stream. Please do tune in or contact us. And yeah, I've been Shane, your host. Please have a good day.